All right. Family values and gender roles. So I thought this would be an interesting topic to chat about because we both come from families with two daughters. We don't have brothers. At least like the family I grew up in didn't have
Like
sons.
sons.
So I do have a half brother, but he's 12 years younger than me. So it's like practically only child. I mean, my little sister's like 10, 11 years younger than me too. But I've always felt like growing up in a Chinese, like Asian family, there were different expectations for boys and girls, even though there were no boy in the family. Actually, I have a stepbrother who's actually the same age as me, but didn't grow up in the same household.
Okay.
So that's kind of like the influences. So yeah, why don't we get started? I don't know anything about like your family, you and your sister. Do you feel like you were treated differently as a daughter versus a son?
I feel that we were not treated differently. So for context, like my dad came from a military family. So my grandpa was very strict, super like authoritarian, whatever. And right, and he was like very hard on like my dad and like his sons. And I think my father may have wanted sons, but he treated like me and Jasmine like sons, honestly. And I think that's also why like I don't know why. Like maybe we have more masculine energy.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, yeah, because I feel like my dad was like, they are my daughters, but they need to be like very driven. They need to be able to make decisions. Like, we grew up playing tennis, running track. We did
Q Mulan soundtrack.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we did like taekwondo. We did all of these things that I think like maybe my father's like potential sons would have done. Yeah, like I didn't do ballet class. I wasn't doing like flower painting or anything like that. I had dance class though, but
You did?
I had dance class. I did like Chinese traditional dance class on
Oh,
Saturdays.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. What about you though?
I was put in more traditionally feminine activities. So again, I was the only child for like the first 10 years, right, of my life. And my mom was a dancer growing up. She got into like Beijing ballet school, but then decided to become an engineer because her parents forced her to be. She came also from a family of three daughters.
Wow.
So yeah, like my grandparents on my mom's side had three girls, and then my mom had two girls, and then my aunts all had sons.
Okay.
So I was put into like piano and like dance, also swimming, skating, whatever. But like I was specifically not put into soccer, even though I requested to be put into soccer because everyone played soccer in Canada at that time. And my stepdad, who came into my life after I was like 7 or 8, was very like traditional gender roles. Like he was just like, girls should not play soccer. And I loved climbing trees, and he was like, girls should not climb trees. I don't feel like I got that as much from my mom.
Yeah, because I think maybe your mom also was like, no, that's tough because she like wanted to do ballet and then she went to engineering, and maybe she understood like what it felt like to be a woman who like couldn't choose her own path, and so maybe
but she also loves her job, so yeah, I think that's fine. But growing up, did they like tell you what kind of family that you should build? Like, what should you do as a independent or dependent, whatever woman? Like, what do they expect of you?
I think it's weird because we don't talk about it that often. I think my family wants me to like go down the traditional route, which is like very stable, like have a stable government job, find a husband, get married, have children, do the home, and then that's it. Like that's literally like the standard process.
Okay, they want you to have like a steady career. Do you think that if they had a son, they would encourage them to make more money or like take bigger risks?
I think my dad probably would have been more like supportive if this like potential like son wanted to be in like an entrepreneur or like wanted to take more risks.
More supportive than you think he is with you right now?
I think my parents don't really care or even know what I'm up to these days because I just don't give them context anymore because I don't feel like I get that support.
So they're not supportive. They're not detracting, but they're not supportive.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If you were a son, maybe they'd be more supportive.
I think so. At least my father in that sense. And I do like there are like gender norms that I think I realized like growing up, like when I tell my dad like, oh yeah, like I am like a manager at this like startup company and this is like what I do when I'm dealing with like, older like white males. And my dad once mentioned, he was like, oh, you should get on their good terms and like maybe you could like pour them tea. Like first of all, I was like, I am not an executive assistant in Asia. Like I was just very like it was jarring to me because I was like, wait, what? I was like, do you know that I like lead team meetings and like I tell them what to do like when they go like evangelize like products. And so I think I was like, damn, there's like a disconnect between me and my father and like
Yeah. Yeah,
expectations.
because in like Japan, no matter, as long as you're female, even
Yeah.
if you're the highest person in the room, you're still pouring tea, apparently.
Yeah. Or like taking notes or pointing to. And so like
Yeah.
in my father's mind, like he thinks that's what I should be doing so that I can climb up. And
Right.
it was
The
very weird.
feminine, like women way of like pleasing the man in the room
Yeah.
versus being authoritative and like assertive and like being the boss. Yeah. What I actually meant was like I share this story
Mhm.
with a few people, which is like the female influences in my life, right? So my mom still loves her job. She's like a very senior like engineer in telecommunications. She's been at her job for like many years, but she's like one of the most senior on our team. And the company does not want her to leave right now, even though she's considering retirement so that she can spend more time in China with her third husband. But I think like it's more about the subconscious and like messaging that you receive growing up. So from her, I think like keeping a job and your own source of income is like really important. And she's like she hasn't ever directly told me that, I think, but she says that like some of her friends like don't make as much or like are more dependent on their husbands and therefore they don't have as much freedom. And she's like she's able to walk away from relationships that she's not happy with because she's like, I pay for my own shit, right? Or like, you know, if she wants to buy bags or like makeup or go travel, it's like I make my own money. Or like her and my stepdad actually divorced and like for many reasons, but she told me the story where like he didn't want her to like dance in her like dance groups with other middle-aged women, but like he would also even be like, oh, like I don't want these people calling our home because it's like taking you away from our family or something. And then my mom's like, I pay for half the phone line, you know, like I should be able to use it. So I think there's a similar attitude for my stepdad is like, you should be like home family, but obviously my mom influenced me more, and it's like be able to provide for yourself and like have your income. That's like super important. She even thinks that right now, even though her husband right now sends her quite a bit of money, like, but she's like, she feels like she needs to keep that, not in any kind of way. Like, she hasn't even enough for retirement, but it's not like a safety or security, but it's like a sense of freedom. And then my stepmom, who came into my life when I was like about 9 or something. So she was around. My stepmom and my dad also divorced, but like she was around for like until I was in my 20s. And she was an entrepreneur. So she opened an e-commerce store in China on Taobao. And she actually did tell me about like who I should become and like what she's like, women must always be able to work and provide for themselves. They don't have to work. You know, you can find a man that like can provide for you, like go right ahead, but you should always have the ability to. And like that's like a confusing thing because I'm always like, if you're like out of society for so long, it's like definitely harder for you to provide for yourself. But I think she just means like enough so that you aren't dependent. So that's always been like a very strong kind of message. And then finally, the third female influence is a family friend who is from Silicon Valley. Her husband is like was super high up at Intel, like 100 million like net worth, their family. She first had a startup cell like that she was part of. I think she was leading their PR team in her early 30s. So she was rich in her own right. And then she manages the money of the household. She throws parties. She helps like her husband's career, and like it just like gave me a different perception of like what housewife life kind of looks like. And her husband's like retired now too. So they're both like very wealthy, and she has crazy ambition into like what she wants to build. But in general, it's like, yes, I want a life where I don't have to necessarily work. Whether it feels better though when it's from my own success and my own money. And like, I just feel like you want to be proud of yourself, you know? So at least all my female influences. Yeah. How does that what does that make you think of?
No, that's so interesting because I feel like I think it's great that you had like 3 really powerful like female influences. But when I like think of my past, I feel like I didn't have any. I think I still hold on to some of the traditional norms that my parents have, which is like the male would still kind of be able to provide more. Like he still is in his like masculine energy. Like he's still kind of like the main provider, though like the woman should have like her own means and like will to like make her own money and whatnot. But I think it's interesting because I think after like during high school, that's when I really started finding my own independence because I
Mhm.
was like left alone a lot actually. Like I would walk to school by myself and I would like drive my like caught my like big van like to work. And I think that was like when everything really started to snowball and I was like, oh, it's really nice making my own money, even if it was like $8 per hour at
Yeah.
like Yogurtland,
Yeah.
right? And then like wanting to go study abroad in Beijing or like leaving LA to move to San Francisco or like quitting my job whenever I wanted to. So I think it was like a harder journey and I kind of regret not finding like more female influences in my life that could, you know, give me a path to go down. I think it was just more of like self-discovery. And also, as you know, like my need for control. Because I think when I was younger, there weren't a lot of things in my control. And so for the need of control, it was like, okay, as long as I have control and I have all these resources, I can do anything with my life.
Yeah. Yeah, control's a huge one. Okay, so now moving on to kind of the present of like what are you looking for based on these gender roles? But like, okay, so first of all, I really agree with you in
Yeah.
the sense of like, I definitely subconsciously was still thinking like, I want someone smarter than me, like someone a few
Yes.
steps ahead of me who can lead me, like
Yes.
alpha, etc. But
Yeah.
then I realized I'm not even attracted to that. Like that's like what I think I'm attracted to or what I thought I wanted.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't have that and be like who we are. You know, like they would want to control you, you know? Like you can't have two people with such strong direction that they want to go in life. And I've talked about this with like a lot of friends because I do know some like alpha males that are like my friends, but I don't think we would be really compatible. So like I've realized that I'm like really into type B. Like we talked about like with like introverts who are like they need to have a backbone, like and be opinionated and like self-confident, but like I want to be the one that leads because I think I need it. I don't want it. I actually want someone to lead me, but I feel like we'd butt heads. So I'm like happy with what I have. The few steps ahead, I'm still trying to figure that out because we just like the provider of the family or like someone who makes more just swapped like in the last year.
Yeah.
And I still don't fully know how I feel about it. And we're still like talking this through because it's just so new. I don't know if like over time I'd still be okay with it or like I'm still in the shock and happiness of like how much freedom and like wealth I now have. But my husband, for example, wants to talk to a therapist about like power dynamics. So it's
Okay.
also like,
Yeah.
how did your potential partner, if they're Asian, grow up in their Eastern type of household? Actually, like my husband's parents, Owen's parents, when Owen told them how much I make,
Yeah.
they
Were they
were
shocked?
like,
They were like,
"Are you okay with this?" Like that was their first question of
yeah.
like, "How do you feel about this?" Because like
Yeah.
I can't speak to like what kind of Eastern values he might have grown up with, but I feel like most likely something similar where like the man is supposed to be a provider. And like we've talked about this, and he was always like, I'm totally fine if you make nothing. Like as long as you're doing what you're happy doing and like we can be intellectually like aligned. So as long as I'm doing something that like intellectually satisfies me, like I can't be like doing nothing,
Yeah.
then that's fine. And I was like, at least in my head, the bare minimum what he makes is supposed to be provide for himself.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
like I provide for you, but like from the male version, it's like he's totally down to provide for
And
me.
you're okay being like the bigger breadwinner right now.
Well, right now, yes, but I don't know. I like that's so hard to predict. If
Yeah.
like for the next 50 years, I always am. Yeah.
I do want to say, so remember how you were saying like we think that we want someone like a couple like steps ahead of us. Maybe it's not a couple steps ahead of us, but more so that they're like intellectual and capable in a different sector that we're not even knowledgeable about. And I find that really attractive. And I think that's why maybe I like engineers more because I'm like, I don't know jack shit about engineering. And I'm like, I
There's
think
also a lot of things you don't know about, but for some engineers are highly paid, very accessible in Silicon Valley.
But I'm just saying, like,
I'm like,
yes, all of those.
There's
things.
a lot of things you don't know.
Yeah.
You can go date a director of like movie production in LA.
Oh,
like,
actually,
you don't
yeah,
know
you're
about
right.
that either.
Yeah,
or lawyer, or
but I think
doctor, or like so many things.
If it was someone else who was like similar to me, I'd be like, oh, that's not interesting, right?
Yeah.
So it's like someone who keeps me like intellectually like.
But I would say like startup world is like not that diverse. You know,
Yeah.
like I actually feel like Owen and I are like quite similar.
Like
we operate in the same space. We still think about the same things. Versus if I dated like a I don't know, construction
like an EMT or something like that.
or like even a doctor or something.
Yeah.
Like I think it would be a totally different world, and I don't know if like our schedules would like you still
like
need some
match.
Similarities.
Yeah.
Engineers a good choice for us because we're like the non-technicals in the startup world, so you still have something in common. If there's nothing connecting you guys, I think it's gonna be hard.
Yeah, that's tough. I don't know. But I definitely feel like that's a hard thing. Like I guess like because he makes less than you, then how do you expect him to like what's it word like boo? Like boo. Like does he need to boo anything?
Oh, does he need to make up for it in some other kind of way?
Yeah.
I think this is just like up to everyone's family dynamic, right? Like usually traditionally like back in the day, like women have to like make up for their lack of income and like by taking care of the family and like household and stuff. But I feel like most guys don't necessarily want to do that. Like even though I feel like Owen's much better at that than like most guys and me for sure, but like I still think he has career aspirations and stuff. And we're like just trying to balance all of that. But like back to like what you thought, what I thought I wanted, what I ended up with, what I think I want now. I do have to say that like if I can take care of myself, I surprisingly care less about the other person and how much they make, what their career is, whatever. I do think that like at some point we chase security. And then therefore it's like life is so much easier if like in a dual income family, they can at least subsidize for the life that you want that maybe you don't think or like you haven't at that time been able to achieve for yourself. Because I definitely depended a lot on Owen like when we were traveling. Because it was so much easier for him to get a software engineering like contract job. You know? Different life stages, different like times. I don't really have the right answer. But what surprised me is that like turns out I don't think I'll get along with someone that would lead me in a few steps ahead and like, you know, have their own career aspirations that probably contrast with mine. Like, because I don't know if two people can chase their careers at the exact same time and like, you know, the timing. And then number two, I think this is true, is that the more that I make, the less I care how much the other person makes.
Yeah, that's true. Because you already like have your own income.
Because I have the life that I want for myself. I feel
but I mean, if
confident.
they weren't like making anything, like if they were, then
I think it's still the same baseline that I'm like, you have to. Men have to be able to provide for themselves
and be a little bit ambitious in their own right? Yeah. I think me personally, like so before I used to crush on like the lone wolf, like the guy who like was always doing his own thing and kind of just like isolated from everyone else.
Me too.
Yeah. And then now I had a conversation with my guy friend and he was like, oh, that's just like what you think you want. But in actuality, like as I'm dating around, I'm like, I want someone who's like a best friend, like someone I can like laugh with and joke with and like someone who's like ambitious and like charismatic in their own right, but also is like emotionally in tune with me. And then also I think in terms of like money and like I am traditional in the sense where I'm like, I still believe in like the 40-60. Like
what's that?
Woman is like
40?
Yeah, like paying 40 and then the man is paying 60.
Why?
I don't know.
Where did that come from?
I think because like maybe since young, I've been doing everything on my own.
Just want someone to take care of you.
Yes, exactly. I was like, I just would want someone to like, not that I need someone to take care of me, honestly, because I feel like I'm really hyper independent and like similar to you, I'm like, I can just like live and be happy by myself. But I think I personally just want someone to be like, I will take care of you. Though I'm like, I'm willing to be alone than be with the wrong person.
Yeah. Where did I've never heard of the 40-60.
Really?
But that's cool.
Maybe it's just something I made up in my mind. Maybe. But I mean, I do understand, like, there are times where, like, let's say, like, he wants to pursue, like, a degree, right? And he's not going to be working, and then I will be, like, the main breadwinner.
You're, like, investing in him.
Exactly.
To make money more later.
Yeah. And so, like, I would hope that he would do the same for me if I'm like, hey, I want to start a community center and, like, start it from scratch. Like, there will be a partnership in that. I just would like to have a guy with a provider mindset.
Right. I mean, there's nothing actually wrong with that. It's only like right or wrong looking from like a Western or Eastern kind of perspective, or like even in Western world, I feel like, you know, those traditionally Christian, norms. Whatever. It's the gender norms are a huge thing. I've never thought of a 40-60, but I mean, when I was making less, I actually felt off balance. And I also know of like Asian couples being kind of competitive with each other, you know, and that doesn't feel good either. But just some things that to talk through.
Yeah. I think it's subjective to each couple. But like even in the current situation of dating too, it's very like complicated about like who pays for the first date and like these because of gender norms are like evolving as well. It's like, is it 50-50 or is it, you know, 40-60 or does a guy pay for everything?
I always say that guys should pay for the first date, not even because of gender roles, but because like at the beginning when like emotions are like fluttery, you have like so much opportunity to like get bonus points, right? Like everything's a bonus. You can only like, you have that opportunity to like up level so fast. Yeah. And you like, why would you try to down level, right? Like,
yes,
you're just like losing at your own game, like before it even starts. So it's like, if someone pays for the first date, I'll usually try to get something on a second date, right? It's like the dance, right? Or like you get drinks, or like you get dinner, I'll get drinks, something like that. Or like the opposite way the next time. Like eventually kind of semi-balance out to 40-60. I agree.
Yeah. And I like the idea of that because it's not as calculative. Whereas like if a guy is like not willing to pay for my like $6 in San Francisco, $6 coffee.
It's like, what are you?
Yeah, like I wouldn't go on a second date with him.
Yeah.
Like that's.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I have been wondering though whether it would be harder for me to date now. Like if I was still single, would my like expectations be through the roof of like having someone
Actually,
I'm saying now that I
yeah.
don't care because like I don't need someone to make a lot of money. But I'm like, if I was single, not married, and I was like on dating apps, I'm like,
Actually,
would I care a lot about how like who would I friggin' be dating? Like,
I think because your caliber is so high now,
and also
the
like would they
dynamics
be
would be different.
interested in me? Because I do think a lot of Asian guys are more attracted to Asians mostly, right? Like I
think
feel like they would
I
feel intimidated.
think, yeah, I was gonna say that. They would
Yeah.
probably feel intimidated by you. So I feel like you might end up just dating another entrepreneur or someone
Yeah, I
who's,
would
like,
understand.
on the
Yeah.
same wavelength or caliber as you. Because again, I think it's also like an ego thing sometimes.
All right. Moving on to the future, which
man.
is family, like how you raise kids, let's just say.
Oh.
When you have a boy or girl, do you want boys, girls? How will you treat them differently?
I don't even know if I want kids, Ivy. So this is a hard question for me to ask.
What about your nephew? You have a nephew.
Oh, I do have a nephew. Gender norms. I
mean, niece, nephew. You know, if you had a niece versus nephew.
I feel like I don't really have any expectations. Like, I think because we also live in, so like the topic of like LGBTQ arises too, right? Like, what if my nephew is gay? I'm like, I don't really care. I don't care as long as this tiny human becomes a good person that's
and like happy and like can live a fulfilled life. Yeah.
I'm like,
you want them to find themselves.
Yeah, I'm like, that's all I really care about. But I will say, like, the only expectation that I have, like, if I were to have a family, is that I would have help, like a nanny, support. Yeah, and like the gender roles of like me, if I'm pregnant, I will literally.
You'll be a princess.
Yes.
I'm like ready to be a princess if I'm ever pregnant. Like friggin' not doing jack shit.
Like baby moon. I want a year off. Like, I want all the things.
Yeah, your body goes through so much. Like postnatal retreats in Asia or in New York, there's like a really expensive one. I'm like, yes. Massages every day, like the confinement. Give me all of that. Yes, because you deserve it.
Yeah, 9 months
like
of that.
Friggin' for your body. But I do think like what if I have sons versus daughters, I think I would put them in traditionally gender rolled sports.
Oh, okay. Such as?
Like I'm more likely to put a daughter in like dance.
Okay.
Right. And I'm more likely to put a son in like football.
Basketball. Okay, yeah.
Or like basketball, soccer, or whatever. But then they can tell me they don't like it. Or they can tell me that they like another sport and I would totally put them in it too. Like I play touch football in like grade 8.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but like it was like, through the school. My mom would never have signed me up for football lessons, you know? They always told me that I was too boyish.
Okay.
But like my grandparents almost said it with like pride in the sense of like, haha, like he like a boy. And they were like, haha, like, but it was never like derogatory, or like that you shouldn't be like that.
So you would give them the option of if they requested it.
Yeah, exactly. But I think like to start, I'm most likely to like put them in where they would meet friends of the same gender, where I think they might like excel or enjoy. I'm not like that's really weird because like thinking about it, I'm like, why wouldn't a girl enjoy basketball or soccer if you just put them in it? It's like they probably would.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I think if I did have daughters though, I would still kind of raise them as like how I was raised. Yeah. So like learning how to swim, learning how to play like sports, like learning how to like
sports are important regardless of gender. Yeah.
Just like being like a little bit more like I'm not gonna raise princes and I'm not gonna raise princesses. That's for sure.
Yeah. How else would I treat them differently? I feel like intellectually, education wise, it would be the same. I do think that like both face different things in the world, and that's something that like you want to be cautious of. So I saw this like reel or TikTok that went viral. It was a dad who was like, they had twins, a twin boy, twin girl, right? They're the same age. They looked about the same age. And they were like, he was tossing these kids onto like a large couch, like sofa thing. Okay, not a bouncy castle, like a cushion over there kind of thing. And then like for the girl, he like held her head and like dropped her like very close to it. And it was like super gentle. And then the boy, he like freaking freaking put him over his head and smashed him into that thing. And then everyone's like, oh, like, look at how, like, you treat, like, your sons and daughters. And everyone's like, oh, that's so cute. And then, like, some people did question, it's like, why are you treating your kids differently? But then there's more comments that said, you know, maybe the daughter is, like, scared. And if the son was scared, too, it would be, like, you would do the same thing for them. Or, like, maybe she, like, hurt herself. Or, like, you know, all these other different reasons. So I think it's just, like, making sure that you're doing it for the right reasons and, like, listening to, like, the needs of your kid. But I feel like these prejudices 100% exist.
I know.
You know?
They definitely still do.
And that's fine. Like, I think girls liking to dress up, like, why is that wrong? It's only like considered girly because girly is somehow a negative term, and like we don't bring that out enough. You know, there's nothing wrong with being girly.
Yeah. And I think it'll be interesting too, like whoever I end up with as well, like my partner, like his, like we will have to basically bind our perspectives on like gender norms for these children too, and like our
also
family.
in your relationship,
Yeah.
like he has to be okay with like, hey, I'm down to be 60 and you be 40.
Oh my god, yeah.
And like people, my friends in marriages like split their finances in like all kinds of
like
different
all
ways.
the way down, like 50,
Like some people do 50-50, some people have like their own funds. Owen and I was everything like together, like we just didn't even like, was just a melting pot.
Yeah.
But now we're like thinking about like, oh, how to split this like differently so that we both feel good. And just know like all these things can change and you can like talk about it, and like your income changes and fluctuates over time. But other than finances, do you think there's anything else that we didn't touch on in terms of gender norms? Around the house, chores around the house.
Oh my god.
My mom totally expects Owen to do all the like
the house
repair, like house repairs.
Interesting. So I think personally, so I can't cook at all. Like I'm so bad at cooking, and I think both of us are on the same page.
Yeah. I'm really lucky that Owen knows how to cook.
Yeah. So I'm okay to do like household chores, like putting dishes in the dishwasher or like cleaning up and stuff. But if he can cook, like I think it needs to be like split 50-50.
Yeah.
But one thing I don't want to do is throw away the trash though.
Okay, I think that's fair. I don't like cleaning the drain, like, but definitely house repairs. My mom like wants to train Owen on all of those things.
He seems so handy though. Like, can he do?
I think it's hilarious because he came over and battery dead. He came over during the pandemic. Like we stayed with my mom, and he was like, oh yeah, like my dad, like my parents and I did all the household work together. And my mom's like, oh great. And then she would give him something and he would not know. He would like, call his dad. I'm like, how to do this? And like she actually tried to get us to fix some random stuff, and we didn't figure out how to do anything. Like some like closet slide thing was broken, and like we still had to call our friend to come do it.
Gosh.
Yeah. But like a lot of those things, I'd rather pay someone to just do now.
Like a specialist,
like,
right?
Why?
Yeah. Like if it
takes me so much freaking time to figure this out.
If it can be solved with money, I think that would also just be like the first alternative option.
So what are men for if we have money?
For back rubs and
I know you could pay for a massage.
Oh. I think okay. I will. We talked about this a lot.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time.
Again,
what are husbands for?
I think for me, like I've been thinking about this so much. Is just like having a home, a person who is a home to come to. Yeah, because I feel like you can't find that in anyone else besides your partner. Like you can't find that in your parents because they already have each other. Even like my sister, like she has her husband, like our like friends, like
someone to go through life with. Like every single small moment in life is definitely
right. So. Yeah, so I think
it's like a best friend that you like live with and you go through life with. I think that's what it becomes.
That
like
is,
no matter
the
what
value I think I'm looking for, not someone. Yeah, because again, it's like provider mindset. Like yes, that's nice, but like I want someone to come home to. I think. Yeah,
but what if someone to come home to who makes no money?
Well, that's why we have certain standards.
I don't feel like it's like asking for much. Wait. Were we talking? Oh no, I was talking with another friend last night. She was like, all I want is a guy that's like, at first he was like, biggest expectations, like can cook and can drive. And I was like, I feel like those standards are not that high.
Low.
Yeah, and then she adds on more. She's like, at least 5'11". I was like, okay, that standard just went up because like, that cuts off a lot of the world, I think, in general. And then like, I don't know, she added some other and makes more than me. I was like, that's probably not also like super like
hard to find.
Hard to find, yeah. It's like there's like a baseline of things. And then, but the thing is like, what's really important is like, you're willing to be flexible on the baseline if like in the end just feels good.
Right. I will say my standards are changing. So anything aesthetic, like I was like 6 feet, like blah, 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 like everything that looked good on resume is changing. It's now more about like that person's lifestyle and like personality and like what they can provide for me emotionally now.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. Anyways, I think I'll let you know who I end up with.
I know. Maybe we'll do like multiple seasons. We'll like go through all of Emily's dating life. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But we would actually love to hear like in the Facebook group, if you're part of it or like join, like what you think of like gender norms, like what you grew up with, like seeing in your parents. Is there anything specific you want to bring up at the end here?
Again, my dad was the main provider.
Okay.
Right. So he had like the whole like 401k, like the full-time job. My mom had her own part-time job and like she still had control over her own like assets and like her money. So I think because of that power dynamic, I was like, my dad was like providing for the family, but my mom still had her own like freedoms. I think that's why maybe I'm like more like leaning towards that type of setup.
Kind of like what you make is our money and what I make is my money.
Yes, Exactly.
I guess I kind of operate a little bit on that as well. Yeah.
And the great thing is, like, my dad, he is like such a provider, and he holds no resentment towards my mom. Like, he actually
There's a
loves her.
lot of men who are like,
Yeah.
my duty is to provide for my family. And I
Exactly,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And he does it so well. So, yeah. Anyways, I hope to find one like that.
We're going to stay tuned. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
I'm the baddest chick. I'm not a sick. I'm about my business. Show 'em